Stop me if you've heard this one before. A whole bunch of companies invested a whole lot of money in a technology they didn't understand in a quest to buy up parts of the internet like you would real estate. And now that that speculative bet is going sideways, it risks taking down the entire economy and all of our 401ks with it. I'm talking about the dot-com bubble, and I'm also talking about the AI bubble. Let's use the power of history to find out exactly how bad things are gonna get in about, I don't know, maybe 6 to 9 months if we're lucky.
They obeyed the machine, and for a time, it was good.
How long have you had this? About a week.
Before I started this video, I actually thought there was some kind of consensus for what caused the dot-com bubble to burst in the early 2000s. But I was shocked to find out that there isn't one specific cause, best as I can tell. Instead, it was a couple different things that happened all right in a row and basically flushed the earliest version of Silicon Valley right down the drain. In the late 90s, people were making a lot of money on the internet, but they were making a lot of money on the internet in a very specific way. This was the age of portals, your yahoo.coms, your AOL.coms, your one-stop shop for using the home computer on your desktop. And investors really wanted in on that action. And this was also the earliest era of business software. And in quick succession, a whole bunch of internet companies started to go public on the stock market. And one of these companies was called MicroStrategy, owned by a man named Michael Saylor. Now you might know Michael Saylor as a guy who talks incessantly about Bitcoin on the internet now, but back then he was the CEO of a very boring business company that did lots of boring business on a computer for business purposes. And when they IPO'd, they were one of the great success stories of this early internet age. Just to give you a sense of how crazy this era was, here's a 1998 Washington Post story titled "Journey into the Secret Heart of Capitalism." And it's all about Michael Saylor's quote-unquote roadshow to get people to buy shares of MicroStrategy. The roadshow that precedes an IPO is a peculiar ritual known to few beyond the most rarefied circles of US capitalism. In 11 working days ricocheting across the nation in a leased corporate jet, Saylor would hold 70 meetings in 11 cities pushing the MicroStrategy story to managers at financial institutions that controlled, in sum, about $2.5 trillion in investors' assets. A lot of these people would lose their money eventually, but we'll get there in just a second. By 1999, the story on public IPOs for dot-com companies looked a little different. The Wall Street Journal phrased it this way in an article titled, "Companies chose to rethink a quaint concept, profits. Ouch." But more and more dot-com companies tried to go public on the stock market, but by 2000 we got the famous Super Bowl where a large majority of the ads in between the game were for websites. In 1999 there were 2 websites that had Super Bowl ads, and by 2000 there were 17.
Just another merger.
MicroStrategy, the power of intelligent e-business.
Now you might be asking yourself, Ryan, what the heck happened in March 2000 that made the entire dot-com industry completely collapse? First, on March 13th, the Japanese stock market took a tumble, entering a small recession. Then, about a week after that, MicroStrategy admitted that their books for the last 2 years weren't totally accurate, and they actually weren't as profitable as everyone thought they were, and that kind of imploded the entire industry.
Monday, March 13th, 2000. A large number of sell orders for technology stock worth several billion dollars were processed at the same time. The stock market plummeted, triggering frantic selling. Buildings sat empty. Tens of thousands of IT workers lost their jobs.
Please don't go.
The thing about the dot-com bubble that I find really interesting is that it didn't destroy the internet. It didn't destroy the concept of websites. In fact, we have more websites now than we ever did. What it did do was kill a very specific kind of investment into a very specific kind of internet startup. Portals. I talked about this at the beginning of the video. A lot of these speculative investments were around websites like pets.com, etoys.com, cosmo.com, and a lot of the big boys too. Microsoft, even Amazon in its earliest days took a tumble. My editor Dan actually was affected by the dot-com bubble collapse. So here's him talking about it.
It's true. I moved out to the Bay Area in 99. Didn't know anything about computers, but I taught myself Flash so I can make weird little cartoons. And then I got hired by this web design agency to make stuff for startups. The building that the office was in used to be a funeral home. We'd be playing foosball in a room where they'd been embalming bodies about a month before. And that's very appropriate because what we were doing was making these dying startups seem like they were still alive. And then a couple months later, the bubble bursts. Everybody loses their job, myself included. Everybody leaves San Francisco, goes home to their parents. Now, and the funny thing is, if you look at that building on Google Maps, you'll see that it later became a indoor miniature golf course, which is also very appropriate to the web today because it's all shiny and distraction from the fact that there are ghosts everywhere and there's going to be another crash. So anyway.
After the dot-com bubble collapsed, a lot of that infrastructure was sold off. A lot of that talent was sold off and led directly to the age of the mega website that we're now currently living in. Amazon.com being kind of the biggest victor of this whole group.
At some point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration.
But humanity's so-called civil societies soon fell victim to vanity and corruption.
We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to AI.
And a lot of people have been ringing the alarm bell about AI right now. Although people were also ringing the alarm bell about crypto. And you could argue that crypto was a bubble that burst, but it didn't really take down the economy with it. AI, though, might be different because people have invested a lot of money in AI, and that's gotta go somewhere.
It's not about how much you earn, it's about what you're worth. And who's worth the most? Companies that lose money.
First, let's talk about the two main problems with the AI industry. The two issues that if they can't figure out will absolutely cause a death spiral of this industry is, one, AI is too expensive to make money from the average person. Your $20 a month ChatGPT subscription is not going to pay for the cost of compute. The amount of power and resources required to evolve that AI model that you're using. The other issue, one that's come to light recently, is that these products are not good enough or cheap enough to replace human labor at companies. Hooray! But also, uh-oh, this was something people figured was true, but we didn't have a lot of people in the larger business world talking about it until recently. Two executives from Uber came out publicly over the last 2 months and said that their AI subscriptions that they were told would replace the cost of human labor are actually more expensive than just hiring stupid, dumb, fleshy, meat suit human beings to do that work. So, if you're an AI company like Anthropic or OpenAI, you've got a bit of a problem here. You can't make money from consumers. No amount of sex bots and ChatGPT psychosis is going to pay for the amount of power you need to run your model, and you don't have a very good enterprise software option. If you can't be the mega powerful Excel spreadsheet that turns your company into a completely automated money printing miracle, well, you're screwed. The third problem is the circular financing that underpins the whole ecosystem. I read about this in Bloomberg recently, and it's probably one of the best reported pieces I've seen on this. As they described it, there's a web of interlinked investments that raise the risk of cascading losses if AI falls short of its potential. And they have a very terrifying chart of all the different companies passing money back and forth to each other. Most of the circular financing is centered around NVIDIA chips. The Jensen Huang, you probably see him, he wears the leather jacket all the time, even when it's hot out apparently. Another big problem here is the rise of open source AI models. If your average consumer isn't going to pay for you to run your model properly because no one's going to be paying $5,000 a month to use your chatbot, and businesses can't find the budget to pay for your chatbot, two things are going to happen. One, the average person, the average worker isn't going to use it. The average CEO isn't going to work it. And the hardcore sickos are going to find a cheaper and easier way to run those models themselves. And that's actually what's been happening since last year when a Chinese AI company called DeepSeek released their model, which is practically as good as ChatGPT or Claude, but cost virtually nothing. In fact, you could run it locally on your computer for free without the internet. And that's true for a whole bunch of different models. And this has been a thing for a while, all the way back to the very beginning of the image generation craze and stable diffusion, but these models have become only more complex and easy to use. And not only can the true hardcore sickos access an open source model on their computer, they can use something like Claude as an open source wrapper to do things with it that you could never do with Claude or ChatGPT. I actually experimented with this a couple months ago where I downloaded Claudebot, which was what it was called at the time, and I hooked it up to Claude, and I was texting my computer from my phone via Discord and having an AI agent clean up my desktop for me. And I don't think it secretly deleted anything without me knowing, but I'll never know because I allowed an AI agent to do my thinking for me because I'm a lazy and disgusting human being.
Artificial intelligence is the next industrial revolution.
AI is rewriting production as we sit here. I know it. Deal with it. Like I said, it's a tool.
The architects of artificial intelligence. Interesting. The future has already been written. The climate is breaking. The jobs are evaporating. The machines are coming.
I have taken something of a middle ground stance on AI over the last few years, which is basically, I think, some of it is useful. I think for coding, it seems fairly useful. But I have begun to suspect that all of this is going to come crashing down around us because I don't think that these companies have any way forward. If the consumer product is too expensive for the average consumer to afford it, and the enterprise project is also too expensive and bad, I don't know how these companies make any money. And they are now signaling that they're about to IPO. Anthropic plans to go public on the stock market this year, as does SpaceX, which just rolled up xAI, so it's technically an AI stock. And it seems like OpenAI is eyeing an IPO as well. And based on what we saw with the dot-com bubble popping, when these companies IPO, things are gonna get really gnarly really fast. The major thing to hold on to here, something that I'm not happy about, I don't love that I'm about to say this, but I do think there's historical precedent here. AI isn't gonna suddenly disappear. Generative AI, talking to a chatbot, stuff that can be done that way, generating code, even generating websites, maybe bits of video or images, songs even, I guess, that stuff is gonna stick around. I don't think it'll ever be mainstream. I don't think it's ever going to replace human creators or, human relationships. But we know that after one of these booms, the technology doesn't just disappear. In fact, the great lesson from the dot-com boom was that websites were valuable, but you had to have something more than just a website. Owning the name pets.com and creating a portal for pet food is not really a business. But if you're Amazon and you can roll up 1 million online businesses and make it a destination for all kinds of shopping, you have a better business. So my prediction is that the idea of an AI company is going to feel really funny in about 5 to 10 years. There will be companies that have AI tools inside of them, but it won't be something that you cause a lot of hype with. In fact, the word AI might be thrown out entirely and replaced with more specific terms like machine learning or large language models or whatever. And to back up my point here, I'll leave you with this little anecdote. I went to Ethereum Denver when I was covering cryptocurrency as my beat, and I was interviewing different people there, different developers and enthusiasts, and the thing that they all kept talking about was how excited they were that the crypto bubble was popping and that the boom was kind of over, because it would allow them to figure out ways to stick the technology that they had created into places where people wouldn't notice it. And I suspect AI is probably going to play out exactly the same way. See you for the next bubble.
Yeah.